I'm Gary Bowles. I'm the chair for the Future of Work with Singularity University. And speaking of skills, I've written and lectured frequently about the critical need for us to focus deeply on human skills and for strategies to help huge numbers of people to continually learn new skills. That's why I'm delighted to introduce our next session and our marvelous moderator. Dr. Stacy Boyle is a 25-year veteran of the learning and development field. She's the Vice President of Solution Consulting at EdCast. She's the co-author of a book, Be More Strategic in Business, How to Win Through Stronger Leadership and Smarter Decisions. And she's become a great friend and collaborator. So Stacy, please take it away.
Thank you, Gary. Of edX and professor of computer science at MIT. edX is reimagining education and upskilling for the future of work, providing the highest quality stackable learning experiences, including the groundbreaking MicroMasters. As the CEO of a world-leading learning platform with nearly 40 million learners, Dr. Agarwal is helping to transform traditional education by removing the barriers of cost, location, and access. Great to have you here, Dr. Agarwal. Next, Meg Baer. Meg is the SVP of Engineering and Operations for SAP SuccessFactors. Meg is responsible for setting the product vision and driving engineering and operations success. With more than 25 years of experience building and scaling technology platforms, Meg is passionate about applying technology to solve business problems, building and growing teams, as well as defining market-winning product strategies that are, of course, customer-centric and innovative. Thank you, Meg. Happy to have you here. And Scott McKinley. Scott is the global lead of professional services for Cloud U at Amazon Web Services. Scott is a seasoned executive leading global innovation and corporate entrepreneurship in the education field throughout Asia, Europe, and the US. Scott co-founded Newmont College of Computer Science and led strategic and corporate engagement for Cisco's Internet of Things education program. Great to have you here as well, Scott.
Thank you.
So I'm excited for this fantastic panel today. So let's jump right in and talk about the changing leadership for 21st century skills with all of you today. Meg, let's start with you. Lately, we've been hearing a lot about the global mismatch between employee skills and industry needs. Can you tell us, why do you think there's such a mismatch today, and how can organizations address the skills gaps that they're facing?
Sure. So first, thank you so much for having me here, Stacy. I am delighted to be having this conversation because I think we all know deeply that this is something that is escalating for us, right? Just to give you a sense, the World Economic Forum has estimated that 42% of the skills and demand for jobs across all industries are going to change between 2018 and 2022. So first off, that's now. Second off, that is a very short window of time. And this is a trend we have been looking at for quite some time. I think all of us know the skills that we got in college are not necessarily the skills that we use every day in our jobs. And so this kind of change, this rapid pace of change, is something that is structural. And when you have a structural change, you need to think about how you solve for that in a structural way. And the point of thinking about skills at an organization level is to not only look at where are your capabilities within your workforce today, but to truly understand what are the needs of your business. How are you going to compete? And then how are you going to look at your workforce and provide for them the tooling that they need to get them to where they need to go? Because you're not going to be able to acquire all of that talent. You have to bring your workforce with you and help them accelerate their own learning. And so we're going to talk a lot about this today. I know that everybody has a lot of deep expertise, and I would just like to plant a couple important seeds. One in order to learn, it's super important that we as individuals feel a sense of belonging, that we feel that our companies and our organizations care about helping us succeed. Because if we don't feel that, we're not going to be in a great position to acquire the skills at the pace that we need to acquire them. And then the other big idea is that to learn things, there is, of course, the need for training. There is, of course, the need for content. But there's also the need for practice, right? To get to try new skills, to be in an organization and an environment that allows you to try, and to create that space for you to be paired up with people that can work with you to develop these skills. And so when we think about that, it's not just training. It's also this concept of talent mobility. It's this concept of teams. It's this concept of pairing up with experts and mentoring. So the structure of how we manage a skills gap is very multidimensional for all organizations. And it really is something that is accelerating at a very high rate.
Great. Thank you, Meg. Wonderful insights. So Scott, Meg talked about this mismatch between the industry needs, right, and the current skill sets available out there, and even the skill sets trying to, in her pipeline. So how is AWS addressing this issue with the big mismatch right now?
Thanks, Stacey, and thanks everybody for having us participate on the conference. I've been aware of TiE for over 20 years, and it's just a wonderful and powerful organization, and the network throughout the world has done a lot of good for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of corporate enterprises. On the AWS and Amazon side, we have a number of programs where we're trying to address this gap. I really like, Meg, your word about structural, because I think the corollary to structural is intentional. Can we build intentional programs and products that really bring the knowledge and skills and competencies that are required into the modern workforce, which, by the way, is changing very rapidly? One of the analogies that I like to use is typically the education, if you think about it as a cog or a cog in a machine, it's running at about this speed generally. Whether it's higher ed or the creation of academic content, it tends to move at a fairly slow, laborious pace. Think of it as sort of a 5-year cycle or so, sometimes longer. Whereas industry, particularly now with the speed of innovation, is moving at a very rapid pace. So at AWS, we have a number of programs to try to speed up or to try to mesh those two gears effectively. One of them is a program called Career Choice, where we're upskilling tens of thousands of our fulfillment center associates around the world for their next job. So we cover up to 95% of their tuition and educational expenses for defined high demand employment fields that these individuals can pursue after they're finished with employment at Amazon. And that's been very successful in multiple countries around the world. We have a higher education program that I was fortunate to lead for several years called the Aws Academy, where we work with higher education institutions. At no cost, we provide cloud computing curriculum and we provide professional development training for the instructors. And that has also been successful and scaled around the world to several thousand universities and tens of thousands of students. And there's another program called the Aws Skills Guild. This is a program where we actually embed a guild of learning inside of our enterprise customers so that they embrace and adopt the skills that are needed for their institution, their enterprise. And National Australia Bank was the leading innovator around that program, along with AWS out of Australia, and it's now scaling around the world. And the final program, one of several that I'll mention, is a program called Aws Restart. That program was really geared, and it's global as well, but it's focused on individuals who really come from disadvantaged backgrounds. And we're trying to lift those individuals up into their first opportunity, in our case, in cloud computing, because our customers and partners really need that talent, but they don't know where to get it. And so we're helping to facilitate and accelerate these individuals that come out of the military or other backgrounds to try to get them into their first roles in the technology world with our customers and partners. So those are 4 programs: Career Choice, Aws Academy, the Aws Skills Guild, and Aws Restart, Stacey, that we're investing heavily in around the world to benefit the students, the learners, ultimately that they gain employment. That's the ultimate goal for us, is to impact the communities in which these individuals live, and ideally our customers and partners around the world.
Yeah, I have to admit that that's for sure a trend I've seen, across my career as well. My experience is there's more of a focus right now on building and developing your own talent internally and talent mobility internally than hiring outside. I mean, it's still important to do, but now even employees and the talent's looking to grow internally and not to shift around so much. They're happy to do that, but developing them internally is going to be significant moving forward, and investing in that, right? So Dr. Agarwal, welcome. And as the CEO of edX, can you tell us, how does content help close that skills gap and that big mismatch that we have between industry needs and the skills that are out there? How can organizations think about edX and using content to close that skills gap?
First of all, it's great to be here, Stacy. I've been associated with TiE since its founding 30 years ago. It's just a wonderful organization. First of all, it's undeniable that there is an incredible skills gap between the skills that people have coming out of institutions. I've been teaching at MIT for 32 years, and I can see that as students come out, and industry expectations are somewhat different. And of course, industry moves at an incredibly fast pace, and that gives rise to the skills gap between the skills people have and the continuing advancement of skills that the workforce needs. So one way of filling the gap is, while you're working, whether you're in a job or you're looking for a job, is to continually upskill and reskill. I think continuous upskilling and reskilling and lifelong learning is going to be the way of the future, particularly if you want to keep pace with the future of work. Gone are the days when you can get a degree at the age of 18 over 4 years and then work for the rest of your life. I think that worked when you were a machinist, machining the same part over and over again. But I think today it's a completely different world. And the challenge is, when you're working, how do you go back to a university and get another degree? You have kids, you have a family. How do you tear apart and go away for 1 year or 2 years? It costs $50,000, $100,000. It's just really, really hard. But fortunately, there's technology today, there's online learning that enables you to learn completely online. You can do it quickly, you can do it affordably, and you can do it where you are. With online learning, just as an example, the organization I work with, edX, partners with some of the top institutions in the world like MIT, Harvard, AWS, SuccessFactors, EdCast, and others, and offers courses on our platform that learners can take. And they can take it online. So it's flexible. They don't have to go to a campus. Second, it's short. You can complete these programs. So let's say you could complete a program in the AWS development with cutting edge skills in the period of a few months. And so you can do it flexibly. You can do it where you are. And you can do it in a short amount of time versus spending a year or 2 years at college. And third, it's very affordable. On edX, you can audit courses for free. And if you want a certificate, for example, a professional certificate in AI, for example, from IBM, or if you want a certificate in advanced search from Google, or a MicroMasters in data science from MIT, you can get these for a few hundred to about $1,000 or $2,000. So it's very affordable. So it's flexible, it's affordable, and you can do it quickly. And you can learn these skills in cutting edge fields. Like, I like to think of these key fields of the future are the 3 Ds, digital, data, and deep learning, where everything is about automation. And so you can learn digital skills, marketing has now become digital marketing. Similarly, data is really important. Data science is one of the hottest fields where the jobs are today. And then, of course, AI is changing the face of work completely. And so no matter what job you're in, you need to know about data science. You need to know about digital and computer science. You need to know about AI and machine learning. And so you can learn all of these skills completely online. And I just gave you some examples of certifications that you can also get completely online, very affordably from top institutions, whether universities or companies. And so I think there are many ways today that you can use to upskill in the continuous lifelong manner.
Great, thank you, thank you. So Scott, I have a question for you. So we know that there's this big mismatch, right? It's out there, everybody knows about it. What is the risk of companies not prioritizing in skill development and investing in upskilling and reskilling, as we've been talking about, and not investing in it now and making it a strategic priority? What's the risk of not doing that?
I think, Stacey, and I'm sure others can weigh in as well, there are a number of risks that I see. First of all, I sort of call it the merry-go-round of talent. I mean, there's only so much talent available. If you look at the number of computer science graduates, either in the US or globally, there are only so many of them. There's a very limited pool of them. And as a result, the larger companies and small to, SMEs as well end up chasing that talent. And so I call it the merry-go-round of talent. It just goes around and around. At some point, you actually have to increase the size of the pool of talent. And so one of the risks of companies not investing in upskilling their employees is clearly that they simply won't have enough of that talent to drive innovation and to improve the customer experience and to roll out these innovations globally. I think the second risk is, frankly, it's very personal. It's sort of that comment that Don Price made on the conference earlier today, that if in 29 states in America, the number one most common job is driving, and you think about an autonomous driven world at some point in the future, whenever that arrives, then you have people obsolescence. People simply become obsolete in terms of their skill set. That obsolescence speed is moving faster and faster. I think the next thing is, if people do not upskill from a personal perspective, then their compensation will stagnate, because the highest demand skills will have the highest compensation levels attached to them. And so that becomes a little bit of a challenge in the future. I'm very concerned personally about sort of the white collar, gray collar, blue collar compensation divide that we have in this country and elsewhere. And then the final issue is, in a knowledge economy, as shocking as this is, your best talent goes home. And in today's COVID world, they're actually all distributed around the world. You can't lock them up. You can't hold them inside of a building. You can't keep them, you can't hold them hostage. They go home. And I think if you think about that, then clearly people will leave an organization that is not willing to invest in their skill set and upskilling themselves, so that their careers progress, their compensation moves in a direction that they're comfortable with. And those are some primary risks that I see, and I'm sure there are others that I've not raised, but those are some primary risks that I've identified.
Meg, Dr. Agarwal, are there any risks that you've seen or you've thought about you could share?
Yeah, I would just tell you that, so we at SuccessFactors think about this as human experience management, because we recognize and believe that people power business. And so if you take that seriously, you recognize that supporting and helping individuals grow, helping them be able to feel whole at work, they bringing their whole self to work, and then supported and empowered for the fact that their work is going to change. That is really the challenge that business has today, is that you really need to create the construct for your workforce to feel truly empowered, to have the agency to take control of that for themselves, and to make those opportunities visible to them so that they can take on this concept of lifelong learning. Because if you set an expectation that what the skills you have today are going to be sufficient to navigate you through an entire career, you're set up to fail from the beginning. So what we're seeing organizations do, we're seeing organizations help empower individuals, create the opportunities for them to take the learning that they need, create the opportunities for them to have the jobs that they like to do, and then give them signals about where you're investing as a company and what you need as a company, so that that overall organizational capability can really be elevated over time. That sets you on a virtuous cycle as opposed to a negative spiral as it relates to talent.
I think this is very well said, Meg and Scott. I'll just add one thing. edX works with companies as part of edX for Business. I'll just give you an example. We work with Tech Mahindra in India. And there was a day when companies would hire people and expect that they would know C, C++, and sort of the 90s programming languages. But today, all the jobs and work is in languages like Python programming and JavaScript and others. And so as a company, they are looking to upskill entire departments into newer languages. AI and machine learning are now taking the place of a lot of the older processes. So many companies are looking to upskill employee bases en masse. And companies that don't do that, they really risk obsolescence, as Meg and Scott have both pointed out, where your competition will eat your lunch if your employee bases haven't upskilled and are not at the cutting edge of where technology is and where the business is.
That's fantastic. Fantastic insights. Thank you. So let's take this idea of skills, right? And the idea of how important it is to prioritize skills. Well, so not only is it important, right? So in the US in November of 2020, the Securities and Exchange Commission now required all publicly traded companies in the United States to publicly disclose the material value of their human capital. Right? So I've been in this space, I've been in the measurement space in L&D for 25 years. And I can tell you, I am thrilled that it happened finally. So instead of me going into customers and saying, how are we going to measure the business impact? And they tell me, oh, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. Nobody's asking, so I'm not prioritizing it. And then they call me back a year later and say, we've lost funding. I'm losing half my staff. What can I do? Should have thought about it a year ago when I talked to you, right? So now we're forced to think about it. So now we have to play by the rules that the SEC set out for us to play by. And the rules that they mandate now is they want organizations to report in 3 areas. In the areas of how you attract your human capital, how you develop your human capital, and how you retain your human capital. And Meg, I know at SAP, you're like heads down and right focused in the HCD, the human capital disclosure piece with the SEC for SAP SuccessFactors. Can you tell us how you're reporting the outcomes and the material value of the human capital at SAP SuccessFactors?
Absolutely. And I just have to echo what you said. This is a trend that we started to see when the Business Roundtable said, hey, the constituents that you look at are not just customers or shareholders, but it's also your employees. We're seeing the recognition that people power business. And again, that is super inspiring, but something we've all known needs to happen if we're going to compete in business today. So when you think about that, there's kind of 2 big ideas that are really important to ground yourself in. One, you need to recognize that this is a trend that is evolving. To see the SEC take this step, we should expect other places around the world will take similar steps. And the kind of information that is disclosed is going to grow. We're absolutely seeing trends towards diversity. We're seeing trends towards corporate social responsibility and sustainability. So if I were to advise people, I think you want to think about this holistically, and I think you want to think about this structurally so that you have a really good foundation for how you get information about your workforce and then how you report on it. And of course, we try to simplify that for our customers, but there's lots of ways that you can do that. The other big piece is exactly what you talked about, Stacey, which is they're actually looking at it from all of the pieces, right? It's not just your workforce, it's also the workforce that are coming into your organization. It's how you partner for contingent labor, et cetera. So really thinking about your broader workforce capability, right? And understanding what is your overall ability to execute. Your shareholders care about that because that is how they're going to feel confident that your business is not going to be disrupted. And so we see this as a great moment for individuals, a great moment for putting people at the center of work, but a really, really important moment for starting to take quite seriously how you collect data, how you manage that data, and how you report on that, because these requirements are going to grow and evolve and adapt, and they're not just going to be within the US.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly global. And finally, we will have people coming up to an interview, reading an annual report. So they'll know about the company because they have a vested interest in it now and learning that skill. So that's great. Thank you. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. And you all are world-class leaders from world-class organizations such as MIT, AWS, and SAP. So what I'd like to do is do a quick round robin, and you guys tell us what you're doing to upskill your own staff and the human capital in your organization. So Meg, let's start with you.
Yeah, so the software business is a people business, right? We are every single day making sure that our team members are helping to build the kind of technologies that are going to future-proof our customers. And so that requires both technical skills, but as we've talked about earlier, it also requires what some people think about as soft skills. Josh Burson calls power skills, right? Adaptability, creativity, innovation, the ability to imagine and innovate into new solutions across all the dimensions of work. So we look at this really, really holistically. We try to live our values, and we're constantly thinking about how do we help our teams be completely equipped, not just for the work they do today, but for the growth we see in our business going forward.
Great, thank you. Dr. Agarwal, what about how are you upskilling at MIT or edX, both?
You know, what is interesting is that we are in the business of upskilling, and we provide a platform and content for upskilling. And so frankly, if we were not doing it ourselves, we would not be eating our own dog food, so to speak. And so within edX, our team members, we have about 250 people at edX in many parts of the world. And we offer programs where employees can take edX courses from any number of universities and corporations to upskill, and both in tech skills as well as we have a number of courses on soft skills. And in fact, as Meg pointed out, we've seen a huge upsurge in the interest in soft skills courses during the pandemic. In fact, overall, we had a 10x increase in registrations on edX, and soft skills was a particularly interesting area for them. A number of I know, for example, 3 of our employees that are doing an online MBA that we offer in partnership with BU. It's an online MBA. It's $24,000, and 3 edX employees are in the online MBA program. So we certainly encourage people to use our own content and other approaches to be upskilling and reskilling continuously in a lifelong manner.
That's great. Yes. I'll tell you the same thing at EdCast, right? So we are a learning company as well. So I tell my team, I'm like, you better post those digital badges on LinkedIn during the day, so I know you're learning in the flow of work, just like I'm doing. So great. Scott, what about at AWS?
I like that phrase, Stacey, in the flow of work. We use that a lot in the work that I'm doing at AWS. So Amazon has a leadership principle actually focused on this. It's called learn and be curious. And part of our interviewing process at Amazon when we hire folks is to sort of, check to see that that's a core part of who we hire, that there's that desire to upskill and to be curious about things. We have a number of different programs internally, not just focused externally, but also internally. So the program that I'm building currently is focused on our public sector professional services team around the world, and encouraging all of our employees in that space to upskill. And as our technologies and as we're innovating on behalf of our customers, there's a constant demand as we launch new products and features and services. So that program is called Cloud U. We have early onboarding programs called Tech U and other enablement programs for our early career individuals as well. And for our sales teams, we're building out a program called Sales U as well. So there are a number of programs very, very focused on closing that gap and trying to meet people where they are when they come in, because whether they're technical skills or they're professional, so-called soft skills, which I never liked that term particularly, I think they're actually quite hard. But we have a number of programs that are really focused on enabling that learn and be curious ethos that we espouse and try to pursue as part of our Amazon culture.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question for all of you. I'm going to steal an idea from the session before us that we jumped in on. So I want to know your guilty pleasures. Scott, why don't you tell us your guilty pleasure? You can confess. Nobody's watching, nobody's listening.
Stacey, chocolate is almost always the right answer for me. Like in any form of chocolate, the darker, the better. I do enjoy a round of golf now and then. And for fun, for a number of years, had a Vespa scooter, if that's of interest to people as well. My wife and I had his and her Vespas that we would ride around in Seattle and Bainbridge Island on for several years. And so those were some really enjoyable things that that are part of my guilty pleasures, I guess you'd say.
And you can get chocolate delivered from Amazon. So there you go. Meg, what about you? It's confession time.
All right. Well, it's not a big secret, but it is true. I'm a huge fan of a beach read. So, almost to the teenage literature level of enjoyment and guilty pleasure. And then, of course, yes, for sure, chocolate, red wine, ice cream, all of the great vices that keep us going while sheltering in place.
Great answer. Dr. Agarwal, what's your guilty pleasure?
Oh, it's simple. I just absolutely love greasy breakfast at diners. So every Saturday and Sunday, every single Saturday and Sunday, I go to a neighborhood greasy diner and gorge on omelets and eggs Benedict and other greasy diner food. And I've been doing this for 40 years. Denny's was one of my favorite places and continues to be, believe it or not, or any other diner. And I actually collect diners. So wherever I go, the first thing I would do is find 2 or 3 nice diners that serve diner food close to where I am, and then visit them. It is far and away my big guilty pleasure.
That sounds like a hangover meal to me. I would say that's when I want the greasy food.
A story of my life.
Stacey, you have to say too.
Okay, so I'm not really a chocolate person, but for some reason, Portillo's chocolate cake, I live in Chicago. If you know Portillo's, it's wrong. It's not right. It gets in my head and I can't get it out, but it gets in my brain and sits there until I drive there and get it. So I did have a slice yesterday, I'll tell you. Not very keto, but I did it. So thank you, guys. Thank you. This is fantastic and wonderful insights. And thank you for sharing your stories and how you're transforming your own organizations. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you all. A real pleasure to be here.
Really world-class leaders and organization, but it was a lot of fun too. So thanks, Stacey, for doing a great job at moderating. Thanks, Dr. Agarwal, Meg, and Scott for some really good insights. I've been learning from you guys for so many years. You've all been a great inspiration for me personally, even in my learning journey and learning profession. So folks, if you are not following Dr. Agarwal, Meg, and Scott on LinkedIn or Twitter, please do follow. And it's a great opportunity to learn from them continuously.